Heidi's years of wandering and learning. Back to the mountains. When Heidi returned from Frankfurt, the whole world seemed bright again. The mountains rose around her like old friends. The sky was a clear, soft blue, and the air smelled of grass, pine trees, and freedom. She felt the same joy as the first time she ran up the hill toward her grandfather's house. "Grandfather!" she called. The Alm uncle stepped out of the wooden hut. When he saw Heidi running toward him with open arms, his face softened in a way it almost never did. He lifted her up and held her close. "Home again," he said quietly. "Now everything is right." Peter, who was watching from a distance with his goats, smiled but didn't come closer. He kicked a small stone and pretended not to care, but inside he felt warm and happy. Heidi was back. Everything would be as before. The first days were full of sunshine and laughter. Heidi ran through the meadows with the goats, brought fresh milk to her grandfather, and visited the grandmother in the village every day. The blind grandmother held Heidi's hands and cried softly. "My child," she whispered, "now my days will be bright again. I prayed that you would return." Heidi sat beside her and read aloud from the hymn book, just as she did before leaving for Frankfurt. The grandmother listened with her head slightly lifted, as if the words brought light into her darkness. But Heidi was not exactly the same little girl anymore. The time in Frankfurt had changed her. She had grown a little taller, her voice was calmer, and she read more confidently. She knew now that learning was important, and she wanted to continue. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountain peaks, Heidi sat with her grandfather outside the hut. The air was warm and golden light filled the valley. "Grandfather," Heidi began softly, "I want to go to school." The old man looked at her with surprise. "To school? Down in the village?" Heidi nodded. "Yes, I can read now, and I want to learn more. I want to help grandmother read her hymn book again." The Alm uncle stayed quiet for a while. For many years he avoided people. He did not trust the villagers, and they did not trust him. But now, with Heidi by his side, his heart had changed. "If you wish it," he said at last, "then we will spend the winter in the village." Heidi's eyes shone with joy. She hugged him tightly. "Thank you, grandfather." So, as the days grew shorter and the first snow touched the hilltops, grandfather packed their things. Together they walked down the mountain, passing through the fir trees and across the narrow paths towards Dorfli. When the villagers saw the Alm uncle carrying boxes on his back and Heidi skipping beside him, They stopped in surprise. Some whispered, "He's coming to live among us." Others said, "Since Heidi returned, he is a different man." Grandfather rented a small house near the church. It was simple but warm, and Heidi made it beautiful with dried flowers and small treasures she gathered from the mountains. The next Monday was Heidi's first day at school. She wore a neat dress and carried her book proudly. The other children watched her with curiosity. Some had heard stories about the girl who lived high on the mountain and about her grandfather whom they once feared. But when Heidi smiled at them, their fear disappeared at once. The teacher welcomed her kindly. "You are very welcome, Heidi. Sit here, and we will see what you already know." Heidi read clearly, wrote slowly but carefully, and listened with shining eyes. She loved every moment. The teacher soon discovered that Heidi learnt faster than most children. At home, she practiced reading aloud so she could later read to grandmother. Grandfather watched her with quiet pride. He repaired furniture in the house, helped neighbours with small tasks, and people began to see that he was not the dangerous man they once imagined. The winter passed peacefully. Each evening, Heidi wrote a little in her notebook, and each morning she visited grandmother with a piece of white bread and warm words. When spring finally came, Heidi and her grandfather returned to their beloved hut in the mountains. The snow melted, the goats climbed freely, and the air was filled with birdsong. Heidi stood on the hill, looking over the valley with peaceful eyes. "I am landing," she whispered, "and I am home." Growing, helping, and bringing light. Spring in the mountains was full of colour. The snow melted, small streams ran down the hills, and fresh green grass covered the meadows. Heidi felt alive in every step she took. Each morning she jumped out of bed, helped her grandfather milk the goats, and then hurried down the path to visit grandmother. The blind grandmother listened for the sound of Heidi's footsteps. "Here she comes," she always said, smiling even before Heidi entered. Heidi sat by her side, took her hands gently, and began to read. Her voice was warm and clear, and every word seemed to bring the old woman new strength. "You are my sunshine, child," said the grandmother. "Without you, these long years would be dark." Heidi's heart filled with happiness. She wanted to do more for her. So one day she asked her grandfather, "Can we fix grandmother's house? The roof leaks when it rains, and the wind comes through the walls." The old man nodded. "We can." Together they repaired the roof, strengthened the wooden walls, and filled the house with warmth. The villagers watched in surprise. The Alm uncle, who once avoided everyone, was now helping the poorest woman in the valley. "Heidi has changed him," they whispered. She has changed everything. Heidi continued her school lessons in the village during the winter months. She became one of the best students, not because she wanted to be better than others, but because she loved learning. When she read, she felt hope. When she wrote, she felt she could give something to the world. Sometimes the younger children came to her for help with reading or writing. Heidi always smiled and explained things patiently. "You make everything easy," one girl said. "That is because we learn together," Heidi answered gently. Her kindness spread from one child to another. Soon, even people who had once avoided her grandfather began to greet him warmly. During the summer months, she spent most of her time helping those around her. She brought milk to a sick neighbour. She helped a mother of many children by watching the little ones for an hour. She carried wood for an old man who could no longer climb the hill. Everywhere she went, she brought peace. One afternoon, Heidi was walking home from the village when she met Peter. He stood on the path with his goats, looking uneasy. "Heidi," he said softly, "everyone in the village talks about you. They say you bring happiness wherever you go." Heidi smiled. "That is a good thing, isn't it?" Peter kicked at the dirt. "I don't know. You help everyone. You read, you study. You're growing up. Sometimes I'm afraid you won't want to spend time with me anymore." Heidi stepped closer. "Peter, you are my friend. No matter how much I learn, that will never change." Peter looked relieved, but also embarrassed. I just don't want to lose you." "You won't," Heidi said kindly. And from that day, Heidi made sure to include Peter whenever she could. Sometimes she helped him drive the goats higher into the hills. Other times she read to him from her books. Peter listened, even if he didn't always understand everything. Grandmother often said, "Heidi, my child, God has put great love into your heart. It shines through you." But Heidi shook her head. "It is grandfather and you and Peter. All of you teach me how to love." Summer passed into autumn. The tree leaves turned gold and red. The mountains glowed in warm colours, and the air grew cooler each day. Heidi knew another winter would soon come, bringing snow and school and long evenings by the fire. She also felt something new, a gentle sense of responsibility. She was no longer the little girl who once ran wildly through the meadows. She was growing, learning, becoming wiser. One evening, as she looked at the red sunset, she whispered, "I want to learn so I can help others even more." And she meant every word. A new journey to Frankfurt. One quiet autumn morning, Grandfather brought a letter up from the village. It was written on fine white paper and sealed with a familiar stamp. "It is from Frankfurt," he said as he gave it to Heidi. Heidi opened it quickly. Her face lit up when she recognized Clara's handwriting. "Grandfather," she cried, "Clara wants me to visit them again. She says she misses me and thinks often of our time together." The Alm uncle looked at her carefully.
"Do you want to go?" Heidi held the letter against her chest. Her heart was full. She loved Clara deeply, but the thought of leaving her mountains made her quiet for a moment. "I do want to see Clara," Heidi said softly, "and I want to help her. But I will come back again, Grandfather. My home is here." Grandfather nodded slowly. "If your heart says you should go, then go. You will learn something new, and Clara needs you." Heidi packed only a few things: a clean dress, a hymn book, a small wooden cross Peter carved for her, and a bundle of fresh flowers for Clara. When she climbed into the carriage sent by Clara's family, Grandfather placed his strong hand on hers. "Remember," he said gently, "you carry the mountains inside you. They will always guide you." The journey was long, but Heidi watched the changing landscape with open eyes. Forests thickened, fields stretched wide, and towns grew larger. She felt both excited and calm, a sign that she had grown. When the carriage finally reached the big house in Frankfurt, the servants hurried out. Miss Rottenmeier stepped forward, stiff and proper as always, but her eyes softened when she saw Heidi. "You have grown," she said. "Welcome." Heidi smiled politely, but her heart looked past Miss Rottenmeier, searching for her friend. Then Clara appeared at the top of the stairs, her face bright, her hands trembling with joy. "Heidi, oh Heidi, you've come back," she cried. Heidi ran to her, and the two friends hugged tightly. Clara touched Heidi's hair. "You look older," she said with warm admiration, "and happier." "I am," Heidi answered. "The mountains make me strong." Clara's father entered soon after, smiling broadly. "Welcome, dear child. You bring fresh air into this house." Heidi spent her days helping Clara with her studies. She read stories aloud, explained the schoolwork, and wrote letters for Clara when her hands were too tired. Clara's health improved slowly. She laughed more, slept better, and found comfort in Heidi's presence. Miss Rottenmeier, still strict, noticed the change. One afternoon she said, "Heidi, you have an unusual effect on people." "What kind of effect?" Heidi asked innocently. "You bring calm to this house," the woman replied, almost surprised by her own words. Heidi visited the garden each morning. The city air was heavy compared to the mountains, but she found beauty even here, in small flowers pushing through the ground, in the yellow leaves of the tall chestnut trees, and in the gentle wind that moved quietly through the branches. One day, Clara said, "Heidi, they want to arrange a tea party. Many families will come. I'm nervous. Will you stay close to me?" "Of course," Heidi said. The tea party was something entirely new for her. Ladies in elegant dresses, gentlemen discussing important matters, soft music from a piano. It all felt strange. But Heidi stayed calm. She spoke kindly, listened politely, and made Clara smile. Later that evening, Mr. Sesemann said to his daughter, "You are stronger than before." Clara nodded. "Because Heidi is here." As winter approached, snow began to fall in Frankfurt. Heidi watched it softly touch the roofs and streets. Clara noticed her thoughtful expression. "Do you miss your mountains?" "Yes," Heidi said honestly, "but I am happy here with you." Clara reached out and held her hand. "I wish we could visit your mountains together one day." Heidi smiled. "Maybe you will, when the time is right." While she stayed in Frankfurt, Heidi learned many new things: how to write fine letters, how to behave in society, how to take care of someone who was ill. She grew more graceful and mature, but she never lost her gentle heart. And each night, before she fell asleep, she whispered a quiet prayer. "Please, let Clara walk one day, and let me bring the peace of the mountains wherever I go." Clara's visit and Heidi's new path. When the winter in Frankfurt was over and the air grew warm again, Clara's father came to Heidi one afternoon with news. "Heidi," he said kindly, "Clara has grown stronger this year. The doctors say she would benefit from clean mountain air. Would you allow us to visit you and your grandfather in the Alps?" Heidi's face brightened like morning sunlight. "Oh, yes, Clara must see the mountains. It will make her happy." Arrangements were made quickly, and soon a carriage was prepared to take Heidi back home. Clara held her hand tightly as they said goodbye to the household. "I cannot wait to see your home," Clara whispered. "You will love it," Heidi answered with confidence. The journey was long, but Clara's excitement grew with every mile. When they finally reached Dorfli, the village people gathered to watch the splendid carriage arrive. "It is Heidi," they said, "and she brought her fine friend." Heidi led Clara toward the path that climbed into the mountains. Strong men carried Clara in a comfortable chair because she could not yet walk long distances. The closer they reached the hut, the wider Clara's eyes became. "This place is like a dream," she breathed. Grandfather welcomed them warmly, offering milk and fresh bread. Clara immediately loved the quiet house, the clean air, and the way the mountains seemed to protect everything below. Peter, however, was not so happy. He stood behind a pine tree, watching Clara with a troubled face. He didn't like how Heidi held Clara's hand. He didn't like how Clara sat next to Heidi and listened to her stories. For the first time, Peter felt something strange, a mix of jealousy and fear. What if Heidi likes Clara more than me? He wondered. His thoughts grew darker when Clara laughed at something Heidi said. Peter became angry without understanding why. That evening he kicked stones, pulled grass, and muttered under his breath.
The next morning, when Peter saw the special chair used to carry Clara up the mountain, he frowned. Without thinking, he pushed it over the cliff. The chair broke into pieces on the rocks below. When the adults discovered the broken chair, they were shocked. "How will Clara climb the mountain now?" they asked. Heidi looked worried. She didn't want Clara to miss anything. Peter stood nearby, pale and tense. He felt guilty, but fear stopped him from speaking. Grandfather looked at Clara thoughtfully. "We will not need the chair," he said. He turned to Clara. "Would you like to try walking on the soft grass? Only a few steps." Clara hesitated. Her legs were weak, and she had not walked for a long time. But she trusted Heidi and the Alm uncle. Heidi stepped beside her. "I'm here. Try, Clara." Clara slowly placed both feet on the ground. Her legs trembled. She held Heidi's arm tightly. "One step," Heidi whispered. Clara took one step, then another. The fresh mountain air filled her lungs. Her legs shook, but she kept going. I can walk," Clara cried out. Heidi clapped her hands. "You can walk, Clara. You really can." The grandmother, Peter, and the villagers all watched in amazement. Clara walked further, her confidence growing like a rising sun. Peter felt his heart fall into his stomach. His jealousy turned into shame. He stepped forward and said in a small voice, I broke the chair. I'm sorry." Grandfather did not shout. He simply placed a heavy hand on Peter's shoulder. "You must learn to do better, boy. But today we are thankful." Clara walked on her own 2 feet. Clara looked at Peter kindly. "I forgive you." Peter's eyes filled with tears. From that moment, he promised himself to grow braver and more honest, the kind of friend Heidi deserved.
The days that followed were filled with joy. Clara grew stronger every day. She walked up to the hut, sat on the grass with Heidi, learned the names of flowers, and breathed deeply the clean alpine air. One evening, as the sun set behind the peaks and the valley filled with golden light, Clara took Heidi's hand. "You belong here," Clara said softly. "These mountains are part of you." Heidi looked at her friend and smiled. "Yes, this is my home, but you will always be welcome here." When summer came to an end, Clara and her father prepared to return to Frankfurt. Heidi helped pack the small chest of clothes and gifts. Before leaving, Clara hugged Heidi tightly. "You helped me find hope," she whispered. "And you helped me learn," Heidi said. When the carriage rolled away, Heidi stood beside her grandfather, watching it disappear down the winding road. A gentle peace filled her heart. "Grandfather," she said as they walked back to the hut, "I learned so much this year." The old man nodded. "These were your wandering and learning years, child, and now you know where you belong."
Heidi looked around at the mountains, the meadows, the small wooden hut, the place where love had grown so deeply. "Yes," she said softly, "I am home."